In an Ahmedabad office, Darshan Patel was attending a go-to-market strategy meeting presented by Accenture analysts when he suddenly stopped them midway. Hold on. First, let me introduce Darshan to you. He is currently the founder of personal care company Vini Cosmetics, the brand that owns Fogg deodorant. You remember the Bina gas wala spray deo? Now, Darshan is known as a brand builder. He's the guy behind iconic brands you must have heard of, like Move, Crack, Itchguard, and Dermicool. All of them are from Paras Pharmaceuticals, his other family business that he runs with his brother, Deepam Patel. Now, back to the PPT. Basically, Patel had stopped the analyst to ask for a piece of paper. Then he began jotting down numbers on that paper, much like any danda guy who runs a small business. He went on to pass the paper around the room, sharing the calculations he'd made. He had basically fixed on a sale price for his product that would keep a 70 to 75% margin. An executive at this meeting recalled that Patel had openly questioned the need for such presentations. And a sales manager told the Ken that they're your typical Gujarati founders, and they've always run their businesses this way. Until 2021, when everything changed. The Patel brothers sold their stake at Vini Cosmetics to the global private equity firm KKR. KKR acquired a more than 50% stake in Vini for a little more than $600 million, valuing the company at a whopping $1.2 billion. This is the biggest fund infusion by a private equity player in Indian FMCG to date. The deal left many scratching their heads. A former executive said that KKR bought it at a very expensive price, almost 35 times Vini's then EBITDA. He added that apparently the profitability of the company was close to rupees 200 crore then, and they bought it on the assumption that Vini had done well pre-COVID. But the real problems began after that. The thing is, there was no clear-cut handover between the founders and KKR-backed new management. A Fogg executive said that the founders still held a 10% stake. They also happened to be very close to early investor Westbridge, which holds another 23%. So they basically continued to have unsaid control. But the KKR backed management wanted to go its own way, and in that process, took some calls that didn't sit right with the founders. This left the PE giant flailing. It wanted to control the business, but it also wanted the founders' know how. And this uneasy combination has led to a state of chaos that Vini Cosmetics is finding difficult to recover from. Welcome to Daybreak, a business podcast from the Ken. I'm your host Rachel Verghese, and every day of the week, my co-host Snigdha Sharma and I will bring you one news story that is worth understanding and worth your time. Today is Wednesday, the 8th of October. Now, for an FMCG brand to stay relevant, it has to launch new products every year, even if some don't really work out. A consumer analyst told us that what's important is staying top of mind with consumers. Unfortunately, that's where Vini failed. Fogg was launched in 2011. It broke out as a no-gas, all-perfume product sporting the tagline Bina gas wala spray, or in English, a spray without gas. They overtook market leader Axe within a year. But since then, the company has struggled to recreate the success. Now, it did launch 3 other brands around 2018. Awesome for perfumes and Glam Up and White Tone for creams and powders. But not one of them took off. Why? Well, you see, KKR's hold on the purse strings was always a little too tight. A former Vini executive even said that while Glam Up was a great product with potential, it was never really invested in. In fact, when senior executives at the firm asked Darshan if he wanted to launch something new, he'd say, and I'm quoting here, "If they give me money, I'll launch it. If I don't have the money, where will I launch?" That's not even where the conflict ends. The thing is, 2 executives told us that Vinny also wanted to be a personal care platform, much like the direct-to-consumer company Mamaearth. A sales executive told us that they even considered acquiring other brands. For instance, Vinny was in talks to acquire Color Essence, a cosmetic brand, back in 2023. It was also eyeing Eva, a personal care brand known for its range of women's deodorants. But neither deal really worked out. A KKR analyst told us that the problem was basically that there were too many stakeholders to manage, and the CEO at the time, Vishal Kaul, deferred to KKR, which rubbed the founders the wrong way. Eventually, after all of that, in FY25, the revenue ended up staying flat while profits improved slightly. An employee and an ex employee told us this was because KKR slashed costs, including management and consultant expenses. But margins still fell from about 65% to 58%. According to one retail manager, that's roughly a rupees 80 to 90 crore hit. And to make things worse, Fogg, its crown jewel, had also lost steam. While it still leads the 4,000 crore rupees deodorant market, its rival Denver has climbed from a 4% to 13% share in just a few years. An analyst put it this way: Vinny lost the plot to Denver. Denver basically copied Darshan's business model and then sped ahead by getting Shah Rukh Khan to advertise their brand. And of course, behind Fogg's slowdown is a confused leadership landscape. More on this in the next segment. Gaurav Trehan, the Asia head of investments at KKR, first wanted to invest in Vini Cosmetics when he was at global investment firm TPG. An executive at KKR told my colleague, the Ken reporter Nuha, that when he later moved to KKR, buying Vini became his first big bet and his first deal at the firm. Of course, he wanted it to be a success. But the timing was tough. COVID hit soon after and crushed demand. To make matters worse, it took KKR nearly 8 months after the acquisition to bring in a professional management team. Finally, in February 2022, it appointed former PepsiCo executive Vishal Kaul as CEO. With this, the Patel brothers were expected to cede control. But that never happened, and KKR didn't push it either. Instead, the two sides maintained an uneasy coexistence. For the new management, though, the top priority was to show Trehan growth. A former Vini executive told us that KKR analysts would often crash sales meetings and discussions. At any given time, there'd be at least two KKR analysts at Vini's Mumbai office. The former KKR analyst we spoke to insisted that's how PE firms typically operate. But at Vini, the firm's focus on sales ended up backfiring. A former manager pointed out that distributors usually hold 2 to 3 months of inventory. But at the time, Vini was carrying 7 to 8 months worth. That was an unfortunate rookie mistake. KKR's push led Vini to offload stock to distributors and count it as sales. But as the same manager explained, when a company floods the market more than demand, prices inevitably crash. And that's exactly what happened. A rupees 160 deodorant was suddenly selling for nearly 50 bucks less. Of course, that hurt the company's bottom line. And while KKR wanted growth, it also wanted profitability. Cue its next mistake. KKR cut marketing spend from 21% of revenue to just 8%. This was a fatal move for a deodorant brand, which is usually built on advertising. The thing is, KKR had no FMCG experience in India, and so it underestimated how brand driven the business was, and it also wanted to sideline the founders. This model obviously couldn't last. Eventually, Vishal Kaul and his team left in late 2023, and the founders resumed control, but this time with KKR's blessing. Their first move? Bringing back their old Vinny team. You see, as a person close to the PE firm told us, KKR tried an approach, realized it didn't work, and then reset its strategy. The firm realized it made no sense to ignore Darshan and Deepam's experience. After all, they were both prolific entrepreneurs who had launched more than 15 brands. So it only made sense to hand the reins back to them. But by then, Vinny was already in a difficult spot. Stay tuned. Gaurav Trehan's approach was completely at odds with the founders. A former executive told us that Trehan was insistent that Vinny's sales numbers look good, even if only in the short term. Management was pushed into doing whatever he wanted, including giving out heavy discounts just to push stock. The founders, on the other hand, believed in selling products at their own price. A sales manager told us that their priority was less sales numbers and more solid margins. Now, eventually, KKR did ease up a little. It recalled its consultants and cut down its frequent visits to weekly calls. But it still reached out to senior executives for updates. A former executive even told us that when the founders wanted something done, KKR would cross examine the team. But when prompted to confront the founders directly, they would back off. In fact, in the meeting rooms, both sides would stay very civil. If you weren't already in the know, you'd never even guess there was so much tension. Now, after Kaul's departure in 2023, KKR brought in Unilever veteran Krishnan Sundaram as Vini's new CEO. But not much has changed. The founders still call the shots, and every big decision needs their sign off. And what about KKR's goal of turning Vini from a traditional to a digital first company? Well, it hasn't really taken off, mostly due to few new launches and limited marketing. Now, a person close to KKR told us that Vini did roll out some new products post the acquisition. One was Real Man, a body spray, and the other was Close, a razor brand. But according to a senior executive, most of the groundwork had already been done under Darshan, and the stock was just lying around. In other developments, this June, the company launched a new campaign for Fogg New, a Gen Z targeted variant of Fogg. But it's barely a new product, and the fact is that the original brand has been stagnating. A former KKR analyst told us that the company was built on traditional media and catered to a particular audience. So basically, when markets moved to digital spaces, it just could not keep up. So now, the company could go one of two ways from here: double down on Fogg or focus on new launches. But unless something changes, Vini's best days might be behind it.
Daybreak is produced from the newsroom of The Ken, India's first subscriber-focused business news platform. What you're listening to is just a small sample of our subscriber-only offerings. A full subscription offers daily long-form feature stories, newsletters, and a whole bunch of premium podcasts. To subscribe, head to theken.com and click on the red subscribe button on the top of the Ken website. Today's episode was hosted and produced by my colleague Rachel Varghese and edited by Rajiv Sien.